Today's second technical session is on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and IoT. Hope members are joined back. Yeah, I welcome speaker of the session, Anand Prakash Jangid. Yeah. So hope members have joined. So brief introduction about the speaker. Anand is a chartered accountant, certified information systems auditor, certified information systems manager, and Apuva certified professional. His area of specialization includes governance, risk and compliance, enterprise risk management, project management, designing and implementation of the regulatory compliance framework, IT governance and management audits. He is a subject matter expert in the field of business and IT controls and forensic audit and analytics. Anand is a managing partner for Anand Jangid and Associates, a CA firm which focuses in the area of forensic audit, IS audit, and fraud analytics for audit and finance. Anand was part of the risk management team of at Goldman Sachs, covering multiple audits across much geography for different functions in the organization. His areas of specialization were forex audit, DP audits, anti-money laundering, Basel II, BCP, and operational risk. Prior to Goldman Sachs, he was with the ES Consulting Group at Infosys Technologies Limited, Bangalore. Here, he was involved in the development of regulatory compliance framework for various compliances like SOX and was part of the team developing solution for Basel II Accord implementation. His responsibilities include working in sync with project of Infosys Consulting Dallas. He has been involved in enterprise risk management, implementation, and IT audit for many international projects at US, UK, Japan, China, etc. He's a visiting faculty for IIM Bangalore, teaching us IS audit and for analytics. Speaker North America CACS and Euro CACS of ISACA. Visiting faculty at ISACA, ICA, and various other institutes. Presented papers on ERP, ERM, and IT controls at various international forums. He's conducted many international workshops on ERM. Have involved in many educational research management for Infosys Consulting Group. Have conducted many CP of ISACA and ICA. Was member of subcommittee of IT of Institute Bangalore branch. He is an active member of Young India CIA. With this brief introduction, I once again welcome our speaker Anand P Jangid. Welcome you, sir, and stage is yours.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to be here on Friday afternoon. I was supposed to speak post-lunch session, and thanks to Nasivan, he allowed me to sweep the session because I had some travel which just came out in the last minute and all the things. So sorry for that. A very good morning, everyone. Actually, still not good afternoons, and it's always great to be here among our Namma like we call it our town and all the things and sharing some of the points out there. And the topic which I'm actually going to deal with, and I'm sure after Rafiq sir's interesting deliberation on data science and other things, I am going to talk about mostly on AI and ML as well as an IoT. And we call them as transformational tools. So I have a presentation, but I still don't want to have a death by PowerPoint. So I just talk about the introduction on that a little bit in terms of what we can achieve and what are the things. And friends, I would really want to have my discussion freeze at 1 hour where I'll be putting at my deliberation, but I would love to take your input because it's very important that I understand how everyone is understanding what we are talking about in here. So if you have any questions and all things, feel free to put it on the Q&A so that we can actually see that. And I can actually answer it up then because this mode of communication is actually a little bit of challenging. I know many times because I don't understand or don't get a reaction from all of you. But nevertheless, we'll try to make the best use of the situation out here. And so what I want you guys to do is, I hope you can put your questions or comment in the Q&A. Even if the webinar chat is disabled, it's not a problem. You can put your questions and all thing, and I'll actually take that feedback and other things and try to do that. I will be talking about some very fundamental points today, and I'm sure you would be very interested to know about all this concept on AI/ML and IoT from the perspective of how this application of this happens in the business. So that's something which I just thought I will, more or less try to deliberate in my presentation. So I hope we are good, guys. You can actually put your question and answers, anything which you had on that. And last 10 minutes, we'll try to keep it up for Q&A so that basically it should not be a one-way communication. It's always a challenge to have a one-way communication because it's something like I will say blah 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 blah, and you will just say yeah, something is coming. It's recorded. We'll see it later. So let's make it interactive. I hope I'm fine with that, right? All of you are good on this. Great. Okay, so let me share my screen. So this is my screen, and in between I'll be looking at chats and other things. So I'll be talking about something called digital transformation using AI and IoTs. And the whole idea of this is trying to see what this technology is all about and what is the genesis of this technology, where it is coming from, and how we can leverage it up in our organizations, with our clients, or in many other part of that. And that is exactly the point of the deliberation today. So idea is, as much as possible, we need to understand that everything what we are going to talk about, and the previous speakers who have talked before me, and the speaker will be speaking after me, somewhere or other, the fundamental concept lies in digital transformation. So let's try to understand that very quickly so that we know the genesis where it is coming from, and we can do justice to this topic in terms of what it is about. So this is going to be what we call it as our discussion points today, starting from the check-in and seeing the digital transformation where it comes. And IoTs and AI is something which we call it as the building blocks of disruptive tech. When we use the term disruptive tech, that itself in a kind of a controversial topic which is there, because disruptive techs are good as well as bad, because it's good for people who are looking for new changes and new thought process and everything, but bad for people who want status quo. And you all would agree that by default, humans always like status quo. They don't want change. So disruptive tech is actually going to change it in a very big way, and that becomes a big challenge for everyone. It can be businesses, it can be professionals, it can be services, we name it, everything gets disrupted out there. And I'm sure some of you here long enough knows about one of the disruptive tech which actually changed the complete industry. We used to have one industry called pager industry, which was a big industry, something in the year of the 2000. And I'm sure if some of you who are not born also that time, they would have seen the use of that technology in that movie Pushpa. Okay, so Pushparaj uses that device, and that industry was just killed because of one disruptive tech. We call it short messaging services, or in other words, we use SMS. And that's kind of thing which we need to understand, that disruptive techs are always something which changes the way we do that. So let's try to go into also the learning and guiding principles which are there, because this is it's always important that we can't stay away from all this change which is happening around us. Now we need to know the guiding principle, because no one can actually predict what the future is going to be. In fact, there is one very famous line by one of the authors which says, "Future is not what it is supposed to. How we think a future would be is not the way future would have come." And we have learned it up during this 2 years of pandemic period, how things have changed, how businesses have changed, how people's mindset have changed. It's not anymore the same thing. And 5 years back, if anyone would have told you that this kind of situation will come, people would have not even thought or agreed to that point of view. in terms of what we are talking about. Then we have the transformational mindset, and that's very important. Excuse me for drinking hot water already. Just like day for yesterday, or I think yesterday it came in the newspaper also. It was one of the chilliest day in Bangalore for the year, and I got a throat infection, so I have to be on some kind of medications and all the thing as we are talking about. Nevertheless, so transformation mindset, friends, becomes very important because here is what we try to see in terms of how we can leverage these accelerators. I would say AI, IoTs, all of them are accelerators, and it's all depends on us how we try to do that. When I say this transform mindset, one thing which comes to my mind, and I would love to share with all of you. Some 3-4 years back, I was attending one very nice discussion on. It was actually technology disruption in medical science, and I was lucky enough to hear our famous, cardiologist from Bangalore, Mr. Devi Shetty, who was, from Narayan Hidayalaya. He was speaking about technology, how transformation and everything happens. And he gave a very interesting example, which I just want to share with you. So just a kind of a show of hand, if I can actually get, how many of you heard about a software by any chance? I think that on your screen, you will see a black dot or something. That is the chat, the voting thing which comes in front of me. So just, raise your hand and tell me how many of you know a software called, uh, uh, you know, Dragon Natural Speaking. Anyone has heard this software out of our, 100 plus attendant who are there? Anyone has heard this software's name? Dragon Naturally Speaking. Hmm. Okay, so we see no one. Not even Sneha, no one has heard about that. Okay, so this is to be a software which was in a big demand. In fact, the pirated version used to go like hotcake. So you can Google it out, Dragon Naturally Speaking software. And it was basically in the year 2001 2. It was a software which basically you can dictate on the word. You install it up and you can dictate to the machine. So, what we see in the movies and all the thing, hey, open this up. Or if you're a Star Wars fan, you would see the pilot giving the command to the onboard machine, and you just basically tell them, hey, do this, and they will do that kind of thing. Now, this used to be a kind of a big thing in year 2002, 3 when we were growing up and we were into professional thing. And if you buy that software or install on your machine, first of all, you have to take around 30 to 40 minutes to train it. It'll give you a paragraph. You have to keep on reading the paragraph loud. And if you read the paragraph, it will be, storing all the things and do that. Now, I was talking about Dr. Devi Shetty. And guys, this is something very interesting which happens in that seminar. He said, everyone talks about technology disrupting and all things, but you need to know how you to use it rightly. And there was some audience question which said, okay, what do you mean by that? He gave an example of leveraging the accelerator. So he said, he actually is he has to do a lot of operations, and after operations, he has to basically do a kind of recording of each operation, what happened, the medical history and all things. So I'm sure you have all have a mobile phone like that, and near your keyboard when you are typing something, have you noticed that when you're typing something, let's say, I can just try to show it to you, or maybe let me just send a message to someone. You see near your keyboard, you have this audio symbol which is there, right? You click on that, so you can actually start speaking out there. So this gentleman was actually using that feature to record it. He said, I don't get time most of the time to do that easily. So when he's in the car and all thing, he will actually dictate this whole thing. And because of the dictation, it becomes very easy for that. I'm sure, even in, I think if you're aware of that, this feature is there here also. Like you can see this. This is actually a kind of NLP, natural language processing. So whatever I'm saying, you're just getting it out there. So it's actually a feature which you can actually use in a mobile phone right now, cars and all thing. And we take it for granted. We really take it for granted. So what he was trying to do, he was using this feature to dictate it up in the phone so that everything, later his assistant can see whatever he has said, make it formatable and put it up in the record. But he said he found one problem there. What was the problem, guys? The problem was very simple. The problem was that there are some medical terms which are very tongue twister. And when you are trying to say it up, most of the time, what will happen is, the typing assistant would not actually be able to put it the right way. So he came out with a very interesting, you can say the jugaad, or I would say transformational mindset, whatever you can think of. He said he made sure that all these tough terms which they use in cardiology and all the things, he asked one of his assistant to save them as a contact, like you have a contact in your mobile phone. All these names were saved as contact. Now, when you save it as a contact, you have seen it. You can say, okay, Google, call this person and all the thing, and Google will call that, right? Now, same thing happened because if you save it as a contact, the machine was good enough to learn that, okay, this is the terminology which is used, and they try to work it out. So I'm just giving you an example how we leverage this accelerator. It's on us. People are going to a level where they are reading printed document into Excel. Now that is also a kind of I would say image processing using artificial intelligence. So there is a use of this in every part of our day-to-day life. It's all about us how we try to use it, and ultimately it's all moving the business to X. Now, what is this X? We'll be discussing it up that in the last. But the point is that that is the exact point which we need to work on. So, guys, this is what is going to be our agenda for today. I know it looks like a big agenda, but fundamentally, don't worry about that. Exactly a 1 hour presentation. I know I don't want to be between you and your lunch, and you'll be cursing me. And I want last 10 to 15 minutes for question and answers. So I'll be able to close it by sharp at 1 o'clock. Don't worry. So uh, that's the check-in statement. This is a very interesting statement by John F. Kennedy, which we all should keep in mind. He said, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. Now, that's exactly the point which we need to understand, because whether we like it or not like it is going to change. And whatever disruptive tech in AI and IoT we are going to talk today, we need to understand that it is coming from the past and present, but we can't miss out on the future, because future is where, just 1 minute, I think you have to mute some of the people. Okay, some disturbance in between. Okay, it's okay. So let me just send a message to them to mute them. Okay, okay, great. Now, this is the genesis, we call it. Why you call it genesis? I'm sure you've heard about this a lot. It is how the industrial revolution has progressed in the human civilization, starting from Industry 1.0, which was more on mechanization, to Industry 2, which was more of use of electrical energy, mass productions, and assembly line, to what we all experienced, which we call it the Industry 3.0, that is automation, computerization, and all things. But if you actually are, very active on the World Economic Forum, platform, you'll understand that they are actually saying that, we are already moving into the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution is all about cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, network, big data analytics, smart manufacturing, and these are the future which is there. And as per World Economic Forum, we started entering into this field in 2017. So it's going to take some time before we do deep into that, because Industry 1.0 was 1800. Industry 2 was early 1900. If you have remember, there was a movie which has come of Charlie Chaplin called Modern Times. There are some very interesting video snippet of that also which are there, where Charlie Chaplin goes into the machine or the machine is feeding it. That was a time of electrical energy and all this other kind of things which were happening. And Industry 3.0 is something which we all have experienced as a computerization. Would highly recommend you to, if you get a chance, to listen to one of the talk by CA Ramesh, who was, ex CEO of Deloitte in India, and he spoke at Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. One very interesting topic, something around, I think, 2 years back, and the topic was the future of audit. That is what CA Ramesh talked about. And his point was very interesting. I really like to borrow one of the points what he mentioned in that talk. He said that if you compare two industries, automobile and computers, and take them as a role model for industrial uh, revolution, you will see that if the amount of development which happened in the computerization part, or the development which we have in computerization, if the same would have happened in automobile industry, a car from we call it as Volkswagen car, if the same amount of things which they would have done in advancement, they would have traveled around the world in 1 liter of petrol. But that doesn't happen, right? So that is a time when computerization came up. But now we are moving to something we call it as the cyber physical system. And that's something which you need to understand, because AI and ML makes that cyber physical system work as we speak. I can give you many examples of that. One example which comes to my mind very quickly is, Siri on your phone, or OK Google on your phone, or Alexa on your phone. You would notice that these are all personal digital assistant, and they are very different for each of us. It is, sorry, it's not like the Siri on my phone is same as Siri on your phone. So in that given situation, we need to understand how we can actually leverage on that. Now, that's actually an example of a cyber physical system, because physically it's actually in your machine, but actually it has a brain somewhere else and trying to do that. Or take example, my favorite example is Tesla car. Now, it's a physical system, right? It's a car. But when car is in autopilot mode, or if you have seen the kind of technology which drives a Tesla car, this is a cyber physical system. So the cars have tires, they have everything, but ultimately it is controlled by the cyber brain, which on autopilot mode and all the things which we see that. And IoT is something which you're going to discuss it up also, what it is, how it actually can be leveraged. There are what we call it as, your big data analytics, because that's something which is also getting a lot of things where you are getting data from multiple places, where we have to understand how we can actually deal with that, what are the kind of things which we need to leverage and take that forward. And finally, smart manufacturing, which we are seeing it. If you see the kind of business of Nexa cars, Nexa, if I go to a Nexa showroom to buy a Maruti car, you would notice I can actually customize my car, and no two cars are going to be same. That's the reason Nexa dealership is going to be different than what you see in any other companies or other way of dealing with that. So this is like customized manufacturing, which you're seeing. And World Economic Forum, as usual, they are the torchbearer of fourth industrial revolution. They are talking about this. It actually got hampered because of the 2 years of lockdown and pandemic, but they still says and they believe that the speed at which we are going to see the changes happening in the way we live with the work, and it's going to be a very, very fast, and it's not something which humankind has ever experienced. So it's something which we need to understand and appreciate, is that in time to come, you are going to have this fourth industrial revolution change it up there. And one of the outcome of this fourth industrial revolution is the concept of digital transformation. So what do you mean by this term digital transformation, and why we call it as a disruptive technology in one way? I'll use the word disruptive because when we use the word digital transformation, it involves the use of technology. And I want you to highlight one word here because that's very important: radically improve performance or reach your business. This word radically is very, very important here. This word basically means that it's not like 5% improvement, 10% improvement, or thing. It has to be radically redesigning of the whole thing. If you remember, this term is something which we also use in BPR. business process reengineering, radical redesign. And that is the sign we are talking about. The outcome based here in digital transformation is to radically improve the performance or the reach of the business. And Brooke Lester rightly said that you can't just do like 10, 20, 30% changes. It has to be radical, which in his word is something like, 50% change in the way we are doing that thing. And that becomes a very important parameter to appreciate and learn on what is digital transformation and how we are can do it. And what is the most funniest thing, guys, out here, which I wanted to discuss with all of you? And the funniest thing is that there have been a lot of reviews and discussions on this area, but actionizing is done by very less people. Means everyone likes to talk, everyone likes to go to seminar, talks about that, but very few people want to execute that. This is one of the very interesting survey which was done by MIT Sloan and Capgemini. And they found that 90% of the CEOs, they believe that digital economy will impact their industries. They know that they can be, in fact, there was one very nice article which got published something around 2018 in HBR, Harvard Business Review, and everyone quote that line, but no one has read the whole article. And that is the article you should go in HBR and read it up. And the line which has come out from that was every business is a digital business. You may be doing selling clothes, doing this. You can't do your business anymore if you're not having a digital, approach or, way of looking at that. Think of that if you're a big manufacturer of clothes or clothing brands, you have to sell it up online also, because that's the way you can't lose out on that business and that marketing part. And that's the kind of thing, digital marketing and everything will be coming out there. So we have to think of that. Krishnan sir, okay, I'll share it with you. I think thanks a lot. Yeah, I'll just did it. You can just search online that every business is digital business, HBR article, you should be able to find it up. Because that's the line is coming from that article only, and which became very, very, famous and the standard line by most of the people. And appreciate if you can share it up here also, Krishnan sir. Yeah. So now coming back, this standard way of looking at on the digital strategy created a very different perspective for me. So there are, what I want to talk about. I don't want to tell you like a yarn of this is what you should do. That's something I'll deal with that. But let's try to see the learning and guiding principles. I would be more interested to tell you on that because we are all, chartered accountant, and we go principle based more than rule based of the thing, because rules keeps, I learned it long back that IFRS is principle based and US GAAP is rule based, and rule based are not good. Principle based, it give us a judgment call. And that's the reason. Let's try to see it from the perspective of the learning and guiding principles which are there. And that would something give us a kind of insight into what's happening here. Okay. And I really like to quote one of the very interesting statement here when we are talking about that. We are talking about, I actually was at one place in Gurgaon. It's called Indian Institute of Petroleum Management. And this place is owned by Indian Oil Corporation. It's like their training body. And I was doing some session for them. And when I checked in at the place, they have the residential, rooms and everything. They had a very interesting mural on the back of the reception. And the mural said, change before you are forced to change. So I really liked it. And I actually just went on to the web and checked it up. Who said this statement? It was Roger Goodell, who said this very interesting statement in context of human mindset, which is always reactive, not a proactive. And here he just mentioned it up from a perspective of the change before you're forced to change. Because ultimately, whether we like it or not, we have all learned this thing that the survival of the fittest, or the term which all of you remember, that is not the strongest of the species or the smartest of species will survive. The one which can adapt is the one which is going to survive. And that exactly comes to a discussion on Skynet, right? I'm sure, how many Terminator fans out here? No Terminator fans out here? I'm a big fan of the Terminator series. And I hope you have heard about Skynet out there? No. If not, then I would suggest you should, go back and watch out the whole series. It's an interesting thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger and everyone out there. And they have a kind of a very interesting concept called Skynet out there. And Skynet is a neural net-based artificial intelligence. And it has its own sensors. It has its own people. And you can see this is one of the Skynet sensor, or, the outcome of the thing, which is there. And this whole concept was brought out long back. So it's not a very new concept, I would say. It's like in the 90s and all the thing, we used to be very, very fascinated with this whole concept of Skynet. Skynet is going to take over the world and humans will be killed and blah, 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 all of that kind of things. But if you see our discussion today, well, we are going to talk about IoTs, a sensor-based mechanism, and AI and ML, which is basically machine learning, is nothing but kind of don't find it scary, but it's something we are talking about them in the right approach. So it's nothing we have to be scared about, because I know there are a lot of fear mongering also happening on that whether they're going to take over our human jobs and all the things. But this is actually a kind of technology whose time has come, and it's going to be there for some more time. And we have to adapt to that in all this concept as chartered accountants, as professionals in the field of finance and audit and accountancy. I would say these are the things which are becoming a kind of a more emerging themes from what is changing, what are the disruptive tech which is coming in. I know we have other faculties who will be dealing with other topics, but these are all important for us to know about. And I think you have been hearing about this concept of kinetic finance. This is a very interesting MIT Sloan paper which is published on that, and I would highly recommend you to read through that, because that's something which we need to understand, that as a finance professional also, we used to always see that, okay, the last thing to change is going to be finance, but it's actually changing today. So we have IoTs, we have automation and AI, we have cloud, we have analytics, which is now a big area altogether. Use of blockchain in different way of business, and my good friend Saseni would be talking today about on the blockchain. And then we have process mining, where we are actually trying to visually see the data itself and make sense from the data, because that's something which is not happening a lot, because people are generating a huge amount of data in all your organizations, whether you're in practice or in employment. Have you noticed that your organizations are generating a huge amount of data? Are we leveraging this data to mine what's happening in our businesses? Are we following the SOPs? Are the SOPs being followed in toto in that? And the last but not least, which we call the kinetic finance, which is a kind of a mix of all of that thing, where disruptive techs are used in different areas. It can be from stock valuation to trying to optimize the business processes, trying to get more insight, which can help better decision making. You name it up, everywhere we are actually seeing these things coming up. So this is something which I thought I'll share with you. Anyone has any input on that, just feel free. I'm actually monitoring the chat, so I would be thinking anything else which you think is there. So now I'll get into the IoT concept, okay? Because let me first talk about the IoT, then I'll talk about ML, and I also talk about the mix between both of them. What are the areas where they're overlapping out? So IoT, the name itself is very interesting. It's the Internet of Things. So when we had the World Wide Web first come up, it was the World Web of humans, because we used to have machines were not so much active out there. It was, static web. We call it static web because people used to publish websites. And I don't know how many of you here have ever gone to a place called Cyber Cafe. No one has gone to Cyber Cafe. All of young guys out here. So there used to be an item called Cyber Cafe where you have to sit. Initially, it was 60 rupees per hour. I know, and then at last it came to 10 rupees per hour, where people used to sit and browse the net. So that used to be humans who used to be basically on the internet, right? But over a period of time, we moved to what we call it as Web 2.0, which was basically more of social medias where you're interacting with people, tagging them, and taking it all forward. And from there, friends, we came to something Web 3.0, which is Internet of Things, where more and more machines are connecting to the web. Like you have been seeing these ads where there is a device which is a washing machine, or recently I saw one nice ad of Milton flask, which you can actually say warm up the food, in the tiffin boxes and all the thing. So all these kind of things are IoT because you can actually control them through internet, and you can be out of house, and these machines will be working. So the term was, you've heard a lot, but the main idea is things is a device here. You should understand when we are saying what is a thing. A thing is a device that is capable of what we call it as, just one moment, Mhm. capable of connecting with other device over the network to accomplish some task. This is what we call it as a thing. Now, this thing can be a sensor-based tool because it has to be interact with the real world and convert that into bits and bytes and then try to do that. And they can send this data between each other and even control the way other things are doing. Because imagine you have the smart TVs and all things which you can remotely connect it up, or you're watching a movie on your phone and you can just push it up on the smart TV, and it will just start playing from there. So this is a kind of interesting way where the things are nothing but any device which has a networking capability in basic or has sensors and other things. And it can be connected to more and more device to communicate without any kind of human intervention. So they can work on their own. They don't require to do that. But the full form, as we all call it up, is nothing but we, in a very interesting way, we talk them as Internet of Things, a way we have, uh, you know, so what I was trying to say, uh, 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 the main point I just wanted to share here is a very important. Uh, I think the Internet of Things you have to see in the right perspective out here. This is all the GAN which we all hear about. But one of the key things in Internet of Things which people miss out in talking about is the concept of what we call it as senses. Hmm? So think of this, why it becomes important. I'll just give you an example here. Okay. As an approach, you can think of this, it requires three things: an IoT network, which is there. It requires a device that can analyze and send information. So analysis, you require a sensor. So here, one thing I want to talk about sensor. There are sensors for everything, touch and all that kind of thing. Even I think the smell is one area where they are trying to develop it up. That's one of the area which is we have still a lack of this. But all other areas, we have got sensors more or less developed. So it's analyze that information in whatever way possible and sends information. And there is another device which gathers and reads this information. And it can also execute some commands like shut off the machine or restart the machine, anything which you can actually think of. So that is the approach it takes. Now you can think of this, a similar example of Aadhaar system, which we see it up, right? Okay. We need to register our fingerprints, and there are fingerprint readers, retina readers, and all of that kind of thing. And what happens here is all these things are a way of dealing with that. So when you sign off, yesterday I just purchased a new SIM card because I had to get it for my daughter. I just went there, I just gave my biometric thing and all thing, and in 5 minutes I was validated and they issued the card, which was never the case earlier, because earlier, you remember, there used to be a guy who will come to your house and then your phone number will get activated and all things. So this is why it becomes more and more important. And what we are seeing as IoTs, Internet of Things, it is bringing a more of business transparency, because more and more people are working during this time of working from home. I hope you have seen there have been sensors which has been put by many companies to read the facial expression, whether it's actually a human who's working on the laptop and all things. I'm telling you, people are coming with different kind of use cases for this. We'll not go into that, but it's funny, but they are actually trying to do that. Or I don't know if you have heard about a kind of system. Anyone here from manufacturing industries? In manufacturing industries, if you remember earlier, we used to have a system, a computer system called SCADA. SCADA, SCADA systems used to be there. Even in most of the power generations and all things, there are SCADA systems which are used even today. Now they are a very expensive piece of information, and it can do a very uh, limited amount of work which we wanted them to do. Now, what has happened is of late, uh, there are now IoT devices which can do the same thing in a much better way, much faster way, and it can give you new perspective. Like, I will just give you an example. If you have seen a large manufacturing setup, if I'm doing a kind of a closing on a quarterly basis and all things, I will never know what is my work in progresses which is happening. Or you can think of, I will never know how much is there in the chiller, or what kind of items are there out there, which chemical is at what quantity. I'll go with an estimates and all the thing, and that's how it is there. But today, it's actually giving you this perspective which were not available earlier, where companies are using this information for capturing many things. This is like, I'm just giving you a very high-end thing. If you have next time in your office or any of your client office, you go and you see a chai point machine. That chai point machine will be actually having an IoT device. It will tell you how many cups it is prepared, when it has to be refilled, how much milk has to be put out there, what is the temperature, is any of the item not working fine, all that kind of thing. So people are going for using this information for better business perspective, new perspective which comes. And goes without saying, it is like process automation. So it automates a lot of things. When it has to be refilled, what are the things has to be taken care of. And finally, a lot of cost reduction, because you don't require to have humans, which are costly in terms of doing it. And without kind of any kind of interruption, you can actually give decisions which will help in better understanding of this. So these are all the benefits of IoTs are happening. And when we talk about IoTs, we need to see it in the perspective of what we call it as how it can be leveraged. So, one thing which is doing it is generating a huge amount of data. Point number one. Point number two, what it is doing is it is actually automating a lot of process. So there's an automation happening, and there is a huge amount of data which is generated. Now, this data can be in a different form. So this large volume of data which this machine is generating, it can be visualized, it can be reviewed, it can be developed with a statistical model. Multiple technologies are there which can help you to take care of that. And it can give you a kind of way of what we call it as storytelling with the data. You can actually give insights on how we can actually do that. And now what has happened is, with the kind of tools which is there available right now for each of us in our machines, like Nine, Python, Skill, and R, all of these things make it very easy for anyone to basically leverage these technologies for getting insights and foresight in terms of how we are doing that. Now, coming to the second part, which is AI and ML, let's try to understand that part also. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are interchangeably used, and that should not be, because these are two different animals altogether. It's like a subset and superset. AI is the main mothership. Artificial intelligence, when we are talking about that, it's a branch of science which assists machines to find a solution to complex problem, like in a human-like fashion. Humans are very different. Machines have a different way of looking at things. Humans have a very different way of looking at things. So how can we find a solution to a problem in a human-like fashion? That's something which comes up here as a major point in terms of how do we deal with that. So it's basically, you can say, there is a kind of a test for artificial intelligence. We call it Turing test. So Alan Turing gave this test. The test is like, you make an AI and human interact with the subject or someone else trying to interact with both of them. And if the human is not able to find out whether it's interacting with a other human or a machine, then that machine has passed the Turing test of AI. So that's kind of a basic way of doing it. So the human-like fashion or solving problem in the human-like way, which can be sometimes messy also, I would agree to that, is what we call it artificial. And there are multiple things in this. The one example I gave you was NLP, natural language processing. You saw that thing. We use it with our tools like Alexa, OK Google, Siri, and all of this tool. And what we do is uh, the whole idea is that in this case, they would ensure it up that in the given situation, the idea is to ensure the person not able to see is interacting with a human or a machine. Like, for example, I don't know if you've seen the new updates in OK Google. I use a phone which is a Pixel, and Pixel has a very interesting feature. Like if I just says OK Google and ask it to do something, it's actually went into that OK Google mode. Sorry, I'll just stop it. So it will just say, okay, I'm listening. So those kind of things are very human-like features. Like you can notice it, you will notice that a human can only says, okay, who is it? It with exclamation marks and all things, which machines were never able to, work on that more. So those are the things which it comes, and it can work on many disciplines like medical, finance, and engineering. I have some examples also which I'll talk about. And when you're talking about with this, multiple people have multiple thought on that. So you can say in one way it is also like elephant and five grand people also because people have their own way of doing things. There are people who are scared about that. There are people who are excited about that. But there are a lot of problems which are getting solved. And you need to understand that so far, the only way what we are seeing AI is being used is by the large tech company because it's still not democratized. So what is happening is even now, only the large companies are using it because they are solving problems like what? Which Netflix movie you should watch next, right? Or if you go to Amazon, what you should buy along with this item, or giving you kind of thing. So this is what's happening right now. But with time, you will see it coming into multiple part of it. So we call it generalized AI is something which can be used multiple way by multiple people. Same thing. Imagine an Excel kind of thing, which every chart accountant can use it in a different way. But ultimately, it's one platform which is there. Now, that is something which is still not happening in this area, which is still coming for. But you will see that thing very soon coming up. So that is what AI looks like. But what is machine learning? I'll actually talk about machine learning a little bit. Machine learning is a subset of AI. Now, machine learning is came from a fundamental concept which we actually try to do that, which is, let's say think of artificial intelligence. When you are talking about AI, they give the output where they're trying to interact with that. This is where the machine is smart enough to know what to do. That is AI. Machine learning will work on data. It is basically requires a huge amount of data to learn from that and say, okay, this is what we have learned out here. I'll give you a very, very common example or basic example, guys. Have you noticed something called as I have, so there is one term which is macros. We all have learned about macros. So when you write a macro in Excel, what happens? You record a macro and the coding is done by whom? By machines in Visual Basic, right? Who writes the code? It's not written by humans, it's written by the machines, right? Now imagine that same technology, I bring it to analyzing data. Okay, and how do we do that? Let me explain you with some example first. So where they're using machine learning, I actually focus on that one. The most interesting thing is on chatbots. So if you're chatting with machines and other things or any of the website, have you noticed that it'll ask you some question, you answer it up, and the more you talk to the chatbots, the better answers the chatbot can give it to you. So this can also give you a personalized touch, kind of upselling, like, oh, you did this, you can try doing it out there. So when I bought my Samsung watch, I was in the US, and I recall I was facing some problem in buying that watch because I wanted a version which is there with both SIM, eSIM, as well as Bluetooth, and that was not in stock. So I was actually chatting, and I realized after some point of time that I was actually chatting with a chatbot, not a human. But it was so smart in terms of answering my questions and all things. It's interesting, and the more it chats, the better it understand out there. They are using it in personalized shopping experience, trying to tell you that, oh, you need to buy this. And they are having more and more data about you, what you like, what you don't like. Have you noticed that when you log on to Amazon, what screen you are going to see and what screen I'm going to see are going to be totally different, right? Or healthcare, where people are analyzing tissues to figure it out whether they are cancerous or not cancerous, and they are actually as good as any human pathologist out there who's trying to analyze it up there. In finance, we have advisors which are powered by AI, which are predicting the best portfolio on what you should be doing or whatever you should be investing it up based on your risk appetite, on your way you are doing it, what is the past, your trade where there, all this kind of things, it can actually be working it out there. Smart cards and drone, we have been talking about that, autonomous drone, and autonomous drones are very interesting, guys. Autonomous drones are different than the regular drone. In the regular drone, you have to have a drone pilot, or you fix up that, okay, this is the location which you do. But think of a situation when you can use drone to do a daily stock taking inside your warehouse, and it's an autonomous. So this drone will automatically goes mm, trying to figure it out, what all items are there, read the QR codes and other things, and tell exactly what is happening out there. So there have been a lot of talks which are going on that. In travel and navigations, we have been, already using it, where, Google Maps sometimes can be funny, but have you noticed sometimes they come out with the new roads and other things, which you never thought it can be out there. Um, Connecting with AI. Oh, this is another interesting area. So, whom you should be talking to? What are the kind of people who would be actually giving you a good input and all things? Those areas are something also being actually used out here and changed out there. So that's a point which is there. We need to understand and take these examples in terms of recommendations and other things which can be used out. Or smart devices or using IoT. So that's one of the interesting things. There is a cross things happening between all this technology. You can't take one technology and just keep it with that. Your smart home, which basically can become a smart because there are sensors and every devices which are there, and it exactly knows that you need a coffee at 7 o'clock in the morning. So the coffee machine, which is IoT enabled, can be initiated at a particular time, and we can actually take that forward and deal with that. Or dealing with musicians who create new themes. Music has been created out there. Looking at what are the bumper songs and other things, or super duper songs which were there based on the same thing. Or we are, already humans becomes very bored by checking kind of screens and all thing, and they can have a lot of errors which can come. So can we have all this being constantly monitored, multiple channels by machines instead of humans? So these are areas where you're seeing AI being used extensively. And all these use cases, I have some couple of more use cases of finance also, which I'll be talking about. But all these use cases are already live, in different ways and all the things where people are doing it. You can actually search autonomous drones. There are companies which are already making this for stock taking and other things. We have Sophia, which is the first AI humanoid which was there. And you have to actually talk about that, right? There were interactive session which happened in Kolkata also. And this is a machine which is, learning itself with more and more interactions and taking it forward in terms of how we do that. So coming to the subset of machine learning, how does machine learning work? Because that's a very important area altogether, guys. When I say machine learning, you need to understand, as I told you, usually what happens in programming is I write a program, I connect you to that program data set, and then the analysis happens. Here it is different. Here, first I give the data, the machine reads the data and try to extract what we call it as feature engineering or feature extraction. So think of this that I give the data to the machine and machine basically understand the logic in the data and write its code itself. So the algorithms are written itself. That's very, very interesting, And you may think, oh, this is something very, very advanced. No, we have been doing that for a long time. Whenever we record a macro, these are called case tools. I'm sure you have learned this also in your IT subject something. It's called computer assisted software engineering. And that exactly is the point which we need to understand and take it forward. Okay. So it will extract the features from the data and say, okay, I think if on this time you are doing this purchase, this is the challenge which is coming. So you should purchase at a different point of time. I'll show you some real examples of machine learning. We are working with a couple of clients and solving some challenges for them. And that give you an idea about coming out with models where you can group objects. You can actually predict models saying that, okay, this is how it is going to be. This is going to be the crude prices in the future. And you can also annotate data. So this is where machine learning is being used out there. So there are multiple types of machine learning. Basically, we call the top three are supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced. So supervised is a task driven. We call it regression. If you notice, is the classification problem can be solved out here. So if you have seen linear regression, we put it up all these points on the dot and try to analyze it, what is making sense and which is the farthermost thing which is there from that common line. So that would be something which will be treating as anomaly. So if I'm doing an anomaly detection, regression is best option out there. Or trying to classify them into different sets. Or I can have an unsupervised learning. Unsupervised means I'm not trying to tell the machine what they have to do. The machine just read the data and cluster it up. It can be clustering the bank customer into different categories based on the performance or how they are dealing with that. Or I can have an reinforced learning where partially it will be doing it itself, but I'll give some, algorithm to learn it up, something which is like from other places, I'll bring it up and take it forward. So there are multiple innovation which is happening out there. Organizations are using them in many advanced way. Like in accounts payable, people are trying to do that of identification of fraud and revenue leakage. Now, this fraud and revenue leakage, guys, is more from a perspective of what are the different things which is happening in this account, what are the patterns which we see, and based on the pattern, is there anything which specifically we can actually say, okay, this is interesting, this is something which we should be careful about, this is something which says that there is an issue which is happening. So from that perspective, we can actually do that. And here we need to understand one very important thing, guys, which is the most important point, I would say. That is the data, more than it. You have your data in SAP, you have the data in your Tally, everywhere you have data out there. You have external data sources also there. All this can be used. Okay. Prediction of customer defaults or bad debts. You will notice that any customer, before he default, he will be having a pattern. The pattern would be something like he's using complete credit line, or he's not making the payment on time, and all that kind of things will be there. Based on that, if on the past pattern, can I just say that whenever this pattern is getting repeated, I should basically get an alert that, oh, this can be a potential case of a bad debt. So let's take some kind of what we call it as, uh, kind of actions on these areas. Or trying to do a spend analytics. Now, this is very interesting. You have multiple vendors supplying the same goods at different factories, and you figure it out, oh my God, this vendor we are buying from him, but actually, if we are buying from him, the yield is so less that we are losing money on that one. So we should not be buying from this guy at all. And trying to analyze it, which of my factory is best in terms of performance and all things, you can do that. There are people who are developing areas where general ledgers are, used wrongly, because in a SAP and all the things, something becomes a big problem in all these ERP, that you'll be using the wrong code, or sometimes the names are, mismatch and all that kind of thing. So can we basically try to see the right GL code is there? So based on reading what is the narration which is there, if it is printing, it should not go to maybe some one-time printing expenses for some kind of areas, but on printing a stationery. So understanding that data and trying to bring it out there. Banking, if you see Basel 3 clearly says that the bank should use AI in monitoring the operational risk. And that's where, predicting non-performing assets, banks, RBI also come out with a master circular asking them to use more of AI in this, because right now also in SAR reporting, which is suspicious activity reporting, as well as in NPA, it's a lot of manual process which is being done, and they're not using it. Humans have problem, right? They will get tired and all that kind of things. They get bored with the same item, but machines can actually do the job better multiple time and take it up there. And the last but not least, T&E expenditure. Now, T&E expenditure, friends, is something which is an area of a lot of organizations have it. The problem with T&E expenditure is very simple. I'll tell you. The challenge comes is like this. The amount is very less, and what is a problem out there for anyone is that line by line you can't check each of them for the line. So can we have a machine which can actually we can actually use it up in terms of implementing it up rightly and taking it forward? So that becomes important. So there's a question which is Neeraj has asked: what is the current maturity level of machine learning in corporate? As per currently, corporates are more inclined to implement bot, and what is thought of that? Okay. So Neeraj, your point is right. See, most of the organizations don't even know that how they are going to use it. So ignorance is bliss. And the most important thing is that whenever you read about machine learning and any of this thing, people will be talking about only one thing. You know what they talk about? They will be talking about oh, this machine learning is cat and dogs, trying to do finding out the pictures of cat and dogs and trying to, differentiate between that. That is the thing you're talking about. They don't understand it. I'll give you one example. Let me show you a life example, this, which we did it for a client. So once they come to know that, oh, this is something which you can actually come out with that, they really are interested to use it. So I'll actually show you one example of DNA part. All of you know this concept of Concur, right? Concur is one of the database, not database, is an application which is used for T&E expenditure by many companies. And if you see, there are a lot of transactions which happens out there. So on that Concur database, we tried to do a lot of analysis for the client, which were, 1 minute, let me just show it to you. So this is the different analysis which it does. And it's on the reimbursement. It's actually based on machine learning. So this association rule mining is trying to see, okay, let's say, for example, if a person has traveled to Delhi, he would have some expenses, right? He'll be actually having a flight expenses, taxi, food, boarding, and all that kind of thing. And all these things are something which we need to understand and take it forward. Now, if you see a kind of a past data for that organization, you will see, oh, there's a lot of issues which are happening. And that exactly which comes up in here, their domestic travel expenses, their international travel, it is going to be different. You can see the variance analysis of people spending at different level, or trying to see at the same level how they are spending it up there. If they're the same, point, or trying to see the association rule mining, showing that what is the areas where they are actually having the right approach, or the expenses is being correctly done or not, and making sure that wherever there is a deviation, we can actually come out with that. So what I'm trying to explain it out here is there are organizations which are mature enough in this area and they are doing it. Bots is a very basic automation. I'll not use the word machine learning for bots, because when you are using a tools like Automation Anywhere and all, you're just like, recording a macro out here. But the point is that what can we do with the data? That becomes a critical thing out here. So moving forward, guys, this is the type of answers which it can answer. Hindsight, insight, and foresight, which is what actually happened, what is happening, and what is the root cause for that, and what if the trend continues for some more time, guys. And that is something which we need to have, deal with. But there are also challenges out there. There are challenges when you have to audit this AI areas also, because we can't take everything on the face value that, oh, this has come from the machine. So there is a new concept now, auditable AI, or we call it that most of the time earlier, machine learning used to give us like some results. So we used to think that this is a black box, this result has come, we are happy, let's go forward with that. But not anymore. Now people are asking that, can I just figure it out? This machine came out at this result on what basis? Okay. So that becomes important. And that is the main area which people are asking question right now. And that is a kind of a, I would say, development which is happening in terms of new areas which is coming up in this area. But then still there are challenges. The first and foremost, I think, as chartered accountant, we are the best people to understand business. Most of the time, what I've seen it, and in our organization also, we are mostly chartered accountant who do the complete blueprinting and other thing. The guy who has done a course on data science and all thing and machine learning and comes in, he will not understand what is the business problem we are trying to solve with them. So it's very important. The first and foremost is someone who understands the business problem clearly before we even get into any of the things. Second thing is understanding the data, what kind of data which is there. And that data has to be prepared also, because it is not going to be in the format what you want it to be there. And that exactly is the problem. Sorry, most of the time, which is there. Then you do the modeling, and there are going to be a lot of iteration. It is not going to be easy. And you have to evaluate the model also before you deploy it up, because you'll be running on, let's say, 1 year data or 2 year data. And ultimately, when you're running it up, that it will be like 50 years data. So let me give you an example here. What is the problem which will happen? Let's say there is a chain of restaurant on Chick-fil in US. Now I'm doing some analysis of sales, which store is doing good, which store is doing bad, and based on the prediction model. Now, when I'm actually doing it, there is going to be abnormal data during lockdown period, the pandemic time. Should I take the data or should I not take the data? Because if I take the data, my whole model will go for a toss. So I need to understand all that. So the deployment of that, how I'm going to do that, how the change management is going to work it out, all these things are still a challenge which we are, trying to work on. And other areas, which is a big problem, is auditing the algorithm. There's a very interesting case study which I just wanted to share quickly as a closure remark. So somewhere in California, they came out with a very interesting machine learning model that based on where the crime has happened, location, we will place our what we call it as police cars in the night, so that the police cars can actually take the right actions. And based on that, we can actually optimize the whole process. Now, that was the whole problem statement they are trying to solve. But once the algorithm was out, they started noticing one very interesting model. The model was all the police cars were going mostly into the black neighborhood and not exactly in the area where the crime has happened. When they relook at the complete algorithm or what has come out there, they found that someone has done a reinforced learning, which means they've given weightage to some of the area. And one of the weightage which was given, whether this neighborhood is a white or black neighborhood, was given 45% weightage. Now, they always thought the black neighborhood is going to happen more crime. So, and that's how the system was actually just throwing out that if it's a black neighborhood, we should send more and more car to the black neighborhood. So what is happening is, just like human have biases, in AI also you can have biases, because who are building this AI? Humans, right? So we need to have a close inspection of the data. We have to see the model is rightly done or not. We see different alternatives, how it has to be, looked into, worked out. So that becomes very, very important. So to summarize, friends, what we need to understand is we need a transformational mindset. We need to see how we can actually leverage all this technology. I gave you the example in the beginning about Dr. Devi Sethi. Same point comes out here. We have to understand that there are these disruptive technologies like IoT, uh, AI, and especially machine learning. So that's a very powerful tool. All of us here sitting in this room as chartered accountant can actually leverage it up extensively. Now, the whole point comes down is how we can leverage it in our day-to-day work. Now, there it becomes important trying to see this, that what are the key components of them are there, what are the way we can actually do it, and what are the use cases that are there. And not just this one, we have to also see what are the challenges. That's a learning which is there, where a lot of people have used it, they know what are the things which works, what are the things which don't work. And it's always good to learn from someone else's mistake than doing the mistake ourselves. Now, that is the idea behind taking this to the next level and having a transformed mindset so that we can move the business to the X and ensure it up that we have, a proper way of leveraging all of the things. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you, friends. And I would be more than happy, as I told you, I think it's already 1, 2. Okay. So I just took 3 minutes extra from the time I promised you. So I just want to take some questions from you if you have, so that I can clarify that better. So any questions, do let me know. I'll be more than happy to take your inputs or questions, and we can actually discuss it. So back to you, Chandrasekhar sir. Prakash sir. Okay. Any questions we have? Because I think the chat is disabled. So I'll just see once again any of the question I have not answered. I think I have answered most of the host and panelist question which were there. Okay, so there are some people who have raised their hand, attendees. Let me see what question they have. Okay, Aarti and Neeraj, I'll try to see if I can. Okay.
Any books or study material which suggests in this area? There was a question by Neeraj.
Okay, so Neeraj sir, I would suggest uh, hmm, on machine learning, if you're doing it, there is a material by Professor Ramesh from IIM Bangalore. He has written a book on that. You can check it out on machine learning. That is a very good book. Professor Ramesh is Professor Dinesh is a good friend of mine. I can just tell you the name. 1 minute, just tell me. He presented this book to me. Okay.
Krishnan Hariharan has put one. Hello.
We got dropped in between. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh. Krishnan Hariharan has put one question. Machine learning using R and data visualization, storytelling using data.
There are many. There are many books out there. And again, telling you, there are. I would say, as chartered accountant, we should focus more on the business side of the thing. Because knowing that how the loop works and all things, these are okay, but we are more interested on the business side of that one. So my point would be that business side of the things, there are a lot of books on business analytics and other things, and these are really good books which you can actually refer. And there are many more. Yeah. And in fact, I forgot to tell you one thing. Yeah. any one of you want to learn machine learning, I would highly recommend you to go to a Government of India has a platform called Swayam, where a lot of faculties from IITs and other things takes sessions, and it's totally open source. Any one of you can actually go and attend it. It's a good platform out there. Swayam is a platform where you can do your own learning, like Eklavya. Okay, great. So I think that's all. Any other questions?
I think no more questions. That was wonderful first session, and if no one questions are there, we'll break for lunch.
Have a great lunch and have a nice weekend, guys. All the best. Thank you.
We'll join back at